Okay, so obviously this is the last night we're here. So the plan for tonight, I'm going to briefly introduce you guys to some front-end UI frameworks. These are especially helpful if you guys find out that you might not want to be front-end developers and you'd rather be more JavaScript focused or database focused. These can help you out. We're also going to continue on our Netflix projects. We're probably not going to finish tonight, so our homework will be to just get as far as you can. On Netflix, yep. And I'll provide you guys with the repo link to get the final files from the reference site. So if you guys get stuck, you can kind of use that as a reference and get unstuck. So. Not this weekend, but if you guys want, I might be able to record one myself and then eventually update it. So maybe, we'll see. Again, we're gonna follow the same format as last night. We'll do some code along, do some pair programming, and we'll take multiple breaks because again, there will be a lot of coding. So I'll show you guys some popular front-end frameworks. So one of the most popular ones is Bootstrap. So most front-end frameworks, the way they're set up is they'll provide you either with templates that you can use for specific needs, say like a hero page or a hero image, marketing pages, stuff like that. And they'll also provide you with utility classes you can add onto certain elements. So if, for example, you want like a heading bold, they'll provide you with a bold class that you can just attach to it and it'll add the styles to it. Most of these have really good documentation, so they're pretty easy to get set up and running with. Another one besides Bootstrap that's popular is called Foundation. Again, it does pretty much the same thing Bootstrap does. They just might have different class names or different templates that they provide you guys. And another one that's somewhat new, but one that I've found out recently is called Tailwind CSS. This was a project of a couple of Canadian designers and developers. They built this framework to kind of, they didn't see really the benefits that Bootstrap were giving in the design space, so they kind of really focused heavily on the design of their templates. So this is also a really good resource to use. Now, even though, so they have really good documentation on how to use them. Usually it's just a link that you can reference, like you were to reference a style sheet, and it's basically you're getting their files. Personally, I don't use a lot of frameworks. I kind of do all my stuff from scratch. Most of the time, because when I've tried to use them, I just end up overwriting a lot of the stuff by myself. So I'm like, there's really no point if I'm going to be overwriting them to begin with. So I like to do a lot of my stuff from scratch. And then I just also just know what it's going to be doing. Take some of the guesswork out of it. That definitely helps, yes. Yeah. Yeah. But they're also good for like rapid prototypes. So if there's something you need to get out like really quick, like for example, add a hackathon, and you don't want to do your layout from scratch, this is where you can really take advantage of those too. Yeah. Yeah. You'll see that a lot. It's a very popular framework, and a lot of people sometimes even start learning CSS and HTML using Bootstrap, and then they kind of look at what it's providing you and see what it's doing, and that's how they learn. But, yeah. Yes, they made it. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yep. Really? Some things in tech don't always make sense. Right. So again, my philosophy on UI frameworks, they can be great at times, but it's really important to know what they are doing, just in case you need to make changes. So it's always, you don't want to always be dependent on the framework to do everything you want. And again, some of you may realize that front end isn't your strong suit and it's not what you prefer doing. So again, these are where they can help you out. All right, so time to get back into our Netflix project. So open that up in VS Code if you don't already. Now, did anybody get the homework done? Some people got really close. Anybody else? Funny. Does anybody want to share how they did it? No? Okay. All right. Yeah. So we'll go back to the reference site. All right. So we got this button down here for manage profiles. So let's pop open our now. So now for the button, you can see that we want this centered within the page, but we already have a container on the whole page that is centering our items. So we can include that right in that container that we already have. So I'm just going to do class profiles. Yes, I believe the volume is on. Oh, really? On these YouTube videos? It wasn't mine, was it? Okay, I just want to make sure, because otherwise this might not be recording now. All right, so I included the A tag. I just gave it a class manage profiles button, so I know what it's doing. I can style it. Now I'm going to go to my style sheet. Manage profiles button. Now if we look at this button, see our text is centered horizontally and vertically. You can see it has a 1 pixel border. You can see that this text is uppercase, even though I did not type it in uppercase. And we can see on hover, the font color changes and the border color changes. So how can we do that? Well, since we want things centered, good old flex box. So play flex. Justify content center because we want it horizontally centered on our main axis. And then align items center. We want it vertically centered in our cross axis. Now I still want to give this button a width, but I don't want to give it a fixed width, obviously, just in case we were to add more text or anything like that. So I'll give it a min width of 250 pixels. I also want to give it a starting height. But again, I don't want to give that a fixed height because in case that button has to wrap the text, we don't want that text to go outside the button. Especially with a border, it'll look weird. So I'll do min height 40 px. So we also need border on our button. So again, the shorthand properties for border. First we define the border width, which is 1 pixel. Then we define the border type, which is solid. And then we define our border color. I don't know the exact color I used, but I think it was 80. Okay. So that's the border color. If we just save and refresh this, let's see what we got. Alright, so it's close. So we have a button that's vertically and horizontally centered with the text. And we got our border color there. But our default font color for this site is white, and the text color for the button is actually 8080, so the same as that border color. Now we added a min width to this button, but we also want to make sure that we will always have some space on the top and the bottom of the button so it doesn't look cramped. So we will add some padding. And I don't know the exact values I gave, but we'll try 10 pixels and 20 pixels. So again, shorthand properties for padding. If they're both going to be the same on both sides, we can do 10 pixels first, and that's going to add 10 pixels to the top and 10 pixels to the bottom. And then the second property is the left hand and the right hand property. So we can do 20 pixels left, 20 pixels right. So this is basically the same as saying 10px, 20px, 10px. So top, right, bottom, left. We set our font color, we have padding. Now we can also do that hover state. So manage profiles button and colon hover. So again, that's how you trigger hover. And what we want to do is we want to change that text to white. And we also want to change our border color to white. So we can rewrite the full border style like this. Or since we're only changing the border color, we can do border hyphen color. Save. Refresh. You can see when I hover over that button, both the text and the border color change. Now you'll notice on the reference site, there's no transition. That's just because Netflix didn't do a transition, so I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. But on all our others, if we wanted to add a transition, again, we add it to the initial button. So just like we did above for our images and the headline or the names. Transition. How long we want that transition to take. And then the way it's going to ease in and out. So animate in and animate out as you hover. And you can animate specific properties. So by default, this will animate all properties that have changed on hover. But for instance, if I only wanted to animate border, so right now the default, even though I didn't type it, it's saying like all. It's going to animate all properties. So I can just say color. Now this should only transition the font color. So see how that border changes right away, but that text color then fades in. So we can use those two. If you only want to target one property on the transition, but still change the other value. So I'm going to take that off so it does all of them. So when I typed in the text on that button, I typed it in lowercase, but there's actually a CSS property to make all that text uppercase without us having to write it that way. Usually I always use, that's quick. What's that? Oh. Usually I always type it lowercase beforehand, just because it's easier to change in CSS, and then if they want to remove it, I don't have to retype everything. So usually I just do it lowercase by default, but get back to uppercase, transform, uppercase. Do that. See, our text is now uppercase. Now you'll also notice that the letters are kind of spread apart a little bit. So there's another CSS property change that, and it's called letter hyphen spacing. So what this will do is that it'll add extra space in between each of your characters. So I think I did 3.5. That might be way too much, I'm not sure. Oh, that's about right. You can see those letters are more spread out than they are by default. Usually that's just managed by the font that you use. Different fonts have different spaces between the letters, but you can override that if you need to. Usually, as a rule of thumb, when you use like uppercase, it's usually better to space them out a little bit. It usually makes it a little bit easier to read. Alright, so we've pretty much got all the properties on that button now. But a few of you noticed that between ours and the reference site there was more space between the row, the headline, and the button. So to do that, if we go back, we can see that profile selection row has those images in it. So we can add a margin top value and a margin bottom value to space those out, so they're not right up against each other. So find that selector, profile selection row, we can add our margin value. So I'm not sure if I gave it the same size on top and bottom, but if I were to do that, again, same as the shorthand padding, 65 pixels on the top, 65 pixels on the bottom, and then none on the sides. Because we don't want to move it left and right. Save, refresh, and now it looks a lot better. It's not as cramped up. But again, even after adding that margin, since we have our big container that is the whole width and height of the body, and it's using Flexbox to center everything, even when we change those spacings, those items are still in the center of the page. So we'll always respond to that. I don't know if any of you guys did this last night, but if you resize your browser, since we set flex wrap on that row when we initially created it on desktop, those items still in the lines as they run out of space in the browser. So even on mobile, although it's maybe a little too big, it's still readable. And we're not changing, widths and heights at every viewport. Set one property, and then as it moves, it does a good job of reordering. Does anybody nod at this point? Okay. Another thing we could add just to improve this, obviously, we didn't add margin top and bottom to our individual pictures and names, just because on desktop we didn't realize we might need that because they're all in a row. But since there was nothing below those to begin with, we could add an original margin bottom to those containers on desktop. We wouldn't have to really use a media query for that. So if we go to a profile container, so again, this is where we're setting those different background images on each of those different profile containers. We have margins 0.20, so there's none on the bottom. So if we just give it, try 10 pixels, see how that looks. 10 pixels and margin on the top. So now they have a little bit of room too. So that way on mobile, if you're trying to put that on your profile, you know that it's Anybody still needs to see the style? Everybody good? The margin? Let's see.
Okay.
Are you good over this? Okay. All right, so we got this pretty close. Now we can kind of move on to our main page. But first, we need to link the first profile to that page. So right now we have these divs, but this first one can easily just be an A tag. So if we change that first profile container div to an A tag, now we can link it. Well, we haven't created yet, but we will create right the next step, homepage.html. There we got that. So if I were to save that file, refresh, you can see now that our name is underlined in blue. That's because this whole item is now a link. And since we've clicked on that before, visited links are styled with underlines and usually in blue. But it's kind of browser specific how they handle those, I think. Now if I click on that, you can see it opens up homepage.html, but we haven't created that file yet. So why don't we do that? Just looking at, notice my second dog image changed to a dog. I'm not sure why there's two of them. I want to make sure that's not going to cause me any issues down the road. Alright, just move on. If it becomes an issue, we'll come back to it. But alright, so now we need to create a new file. So, quick way to do that is to open up your folder structure over here on the left, and then just hit this little document sign with a plus button. And now you'll see actually when I did that, I was already in the images folder, so I was trying to create a new file in the images folder, so we definitely don't want that. So you can also just right click anywhere in that structure and then hit new file. Either of those will work. So either the plus button up here up at the top if you're in your root directory folder, so not inside CSS or fonts or images or anything like that, or you can right click and hit new file, and then it will create a file, and then here's where we give our name. So homepage.html. Just our project folder, so right next to it. So just hit enter, that should pop it open too. I don't. I just never really got into the habit of using it, so I don't. But other instructors definitely do, and Jesse's a big proponent of using the command line too. Just he lives there. He does all his stuff in there.
It's just a matter of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's all preference. File in that folder, yes. Now we could create a whole new HTML file, but you can either use that. I know there's a shortcut for VS Code to do a document like outline, If you guys know that, I don't remember off the top of my head. Exclamation point tab. Huh, cool. Yeah, I knew it existed, but I actually have never looked it up myself. Usually I'll just copy and paste it from another HTML file I already have. Because usually I'm not starting completely from scratch. So if I'm doing like a freelance project or something like that, I already have other ones I've created that have other things in the head section, like meta tags for like search engine optimization and stuff like that. So usually I'll just copy those and then reuse it. This is handy too if I wanted to start from scratch. So for the title tag, I don't know what I called the other one, but that's it. So Netflix Home is what I called it. So Netflix, if I could type home. So that'll be what shows up in our tab. Get a little space on it if I like that or not. But what's that? You do. You're right. I do. Eventually somebody would notice. So now if we save that, refresh it. Oh, between this? No. No. Yeah, that's just purely like how you want it to look. I don't know if I actually want spaces there or not, but I just put it there. Just I thought you might want space between them. We'll see how it looks though. So refresh now. Click. So you no longer get file not found. You just get our blank page. And you can see up at the top in our tab we have Netflix-home, which is the title we gave that document. So that means it's probably no longer active. Now, next step, we need to link it to our style sheet. So again, we're just going to type out our link. File.css. What? Oh yeah, I always do that, sorry. Is he wrong? It's href, right? Okay. I do mix them up sometimes though. Usually because again, I'm copy and pasting, I'm not writing that link out tag myself. myself. So. Oh, really? And rel equals style sheet. So we save. Refresh. It's using the style sheet we already have, and we set a background color. Our background color should be our dark gray. Everybody sees that? Right? Okay, cool. Go to this page. Let me just make this full for now. So on this page, see we have another header, but our old header already has some of that stuff that we're going to need in it. So we can go right back to our other index.html, and we can copy that whole header. Control C, and Control V. Now when you paste that in, it might have some weird formatting. Usually after you paste, if you just do Control Z, it'll bring it back in line with your formatting, so it'll be aligned evenly with your tabs. So if you save that, and refresh, see our logo pops up, and then our headers behind that. Alright guys, everybody good? Everybody's at this step? Okay. So now that we have our header in there, you can see that we have some navigation links. On the right hand side we have now we're not going to do any of these, but I wanted to put them there because it'll be good practice with how to add icons to your sites. Did Jeff show you any like Font Awesome or anything like that to add icons? So that's a really good resource. The one I use is Google Material Icons. So these are just made by Google that they use like in all their websites and products. So you probably recognize a few of them. Yes. I thought I might have put the link in the slides. If I didn't, I can ping it out in the Slack quick if you want. Yeah, so material design is like Google's design language that they use to build other websites and apps. It looks pretty nice. And they also have some web components that you can use for free. So it's also a good resource to use. Students. They do. They know everything about you and have all your data, but it's okay with me. Great products, yeah. I pinned out that link if you guys don't want to type that or Google it. So they have a search box up here where you can kind of search for specific icons, or you can just scroll through their massive list that they have. So one of them that we're going to need is search. If I search for search, see this icon pops up. You just click on it, see this little gray box appeared in the lower left. Yep, and then if you click on the gray box, it will expand up. And then you'll see at the bottom there's a little piece of code here. It gives us an I tag. We copy that icon. And paste it into our nav bar. Mine didn't copy. 1 second. Control C. Control V. Now we have that icon in our site. But you'll see if we save and refresh, it's not going to do anything because we haven't included the CSS that these icons use in our projects. All right. Yeah, let me tab this in so it's easier to read. So iClass, material icons, the word search. Oh, did you copy all of it? Yeah. I gotta move that. So all you need is this part below for modern browsers. So this one's be for like IE 9 and below if you have to support that. I really don't know how it's doing anything different because if you look at the text, it's the same thing. I've never actually included that in any of the sites. Mainly because I also don't really care about IE 9, so I don't so I don't include it. So you can just use this first one. But you also can see in this panel, it gives us a little hint, say, follow the instructions to embed the icon font in your site. If we click that link, it takes us to the GitHub page, google.github.io. If we scroll down, you can see that they give us a few options for installing the font to use it. If you're using a package manager, you can use like npm to install it. Obviously, we're not. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this link tag that they give us that will allow us to link to their style sheet for those fonts. So Google hosts this themselves, and we can just reference their link to pull in their styles. We don't actually have that style sheet ourselves. So everybody find that link down the page. Okay. So we just copy that. go back to, so this is one thing to keep in mind too, since we have two different HTML files, if we want to include the icon in both, we would have to add it to the head section of both. So I don't think we're not going to be using icons in the other one, so we can just add it to homepage.html. Save that. Back to our site. Refresh, you can see now we have a little search icon up there. Two of them? Anybody else not see the search icon? Everybody's got it? Oh, it's perfect.
Okay.
That's right. Paste that into your homepage. For head section, the head section. The icon itself goes in the nav tag. The link to use it is in the head section. So right where we put our normal style sheet. Right here. And then the icon itself, yes, is in our nav tag right below our logo. Yeah, that was something we added in one of the other. Yep.
But the actual icon you download, there has to be an interface.
No, because this is actually a font. It's being treated as a font. So I stands for icon font.
Right.
So it's being treated as if it was text.
So we don't have to actually download it.
Correct. Right. Google's hosting all those icons for us to use. So we don't include it in our actual project. We just reference it with that link.
All right, so where do you find that? Because I didn't find that on the Google Play Store link picture.
Yep. So if we go to, yep. So if we're on the icons page, when we open up that little accordion, there's a blue link right here. So when we click on, yeah. So, yep. And then about in the middle of the page to the left, there's a follow the instructions to embed the icon font. So click on that link. Yep. And now, this is the top of the page. You scroll down all the way till it says link font to the web. And then for setup method 1, using via Google Web Fonts, you just want to copy that real quick. Yep.
You ever do it even the SVG?
Yes. So if I know like I want to support like offline, I will like actually download that myself. So icon fonts are kind of just as scalable as SVGs are for the most part because they're fonts. So it's like as big as you make most text, it's clear. So it's just preference. I will say for an icon font, it's much easier to style it the way you want than an SVG because sometimes if you embed an SVG, you have to do multiple styles to style different parts of the image. So. Have you not seen the icon?
Oh, it's not number two?
So we have
Sorry.
the logo.
I'm okay. I'm
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. We just don't have the. So you just don't have pattern. Yeah, we have pattern master. Yeah, so you will see that.
Anybody else need help with that? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's how.
That would make sense too. So as the last, so it's the default. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. So the first one. So the reason the next page that the image changed was because nth type
Was looking for the profile container class, but since the first one is an A tag, it thought that the first div profile container was actually the first of type. So that's why I was doing dog twice. So if I demonstrate that here, so if we go back to our home page, oh, we have linked the logo back to the home page as well, so we got to change that. So when you're indexed, if you want to get back to the home page, just change the logo link to index.html. So that way you can get back to the profile switcher. Right. So we want it. So we want it here, and then we're going to change it in the home page too. Yes. Yes. That CSS selector is only. Yeah, if you did it a different way, don't worry about it. You should be fine. So we're going to change index to the same place. And on home page.html. Make sure the logo is also going back to the profile page. Click back on the logo. So what I was saying, since we changed this first image here to an E tag and a container around it, when you listen to those items using the type in CSS, it doesn't recognize that as the same as the other element since it's an A tag and the rest are divs. You would think it would. I thought it would since we're only using .profile container and not a.profile container or div.profile container, but apparently it does. So it took over. It got the default because it still had the same class, and we've set that class as a dog background. But then when the rest of the CSS was running and it looked for our nth types, it found that first element, which it thought was div.profile container, which is this one, and gave it the default on the left. So that's why we actually had another sequence because I think there's only 4 of these. That makes sense? It's okay if it doesn't. But so a way to fix it is to make all those divs A tags. Again, they're not going to be linking anywhere, but in a real website, they would be. They'd be going somewhere to your different profiles. In the HTML. So I can do that right here. So go to our index. See our first one. Scroll over so you can see it better. Yes. Yep. So this is profile container as well. So I just made that an A tag and then I gave it our href so it links to the homepage HTML that we just created. Nope, only the first one. But right now I'm going to change all those to A tags. I'm just not going to give them an href value yet. But that will fix our CSS. Click. Did I miss one? Yes. On all the profiles. Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to show you guys different ways of adding images on there. Background images can be useful, like I said, for like positioning and stuff, especially in responsive. But again, there is a downside to using them, and that's accessibility, because we can't add the alt tags to those images unless they're background. So again, if you're including those images as anything descriptive that a screen reader might need to see, you want to use those images inline so you can add that alt text to it. No. We're talking about the images themselves. If you're using them. So we actually showed last time a different way to add these images in, and that's actually internships as a cell, and that's using the background property. I can show you quickly what that looks like. So you can see inside profile container, we have profile-bg. And our profile container.profile.bg, I'm setting a background with a URL that links to the image that we want to use. So that will make the background of the element that you have the image that you provide. And then these properties right here after the background property are styling purposes. So this first one, no repeat, that makes it so our image won't repeat. I believe by default, if you have an image that's smaller than the container you're trying to set background on, it'll repeat it to try to fill the empty space. And then these other two values are where we want the position of that background image to show up. So we're setting it as center, so the center of the image is always aligned with the center of the element itself. So that's background images. You can talk about it later if you want. If you want to go over it. Yeah. So let's go back to. Oh, did everybody get this, by the way? They did background images? They can see all of them in right order now. Right, so if we go back to our homepage.html, and we look at a reference site, you can see that we're also going to need a notification bell. I actually added this text. I can show you guys how to do that. But we're just looking for the icon right now. So while we're here, just go to the search box again. You're going to have to uncollapse this selected icon thing to see the search box. Right up here, we're going to search for notifications, I believe. Just do notif and then password for me. And Google adds like tags to all these icons that might describe what they might be used for. So some of these make more sense than others, but that's why you'll see ones that aren't specifically what you're looking for. If we scroll to the bottom, there's our little bell icon. So again, if we click on that icon, it adds it down here in our lower left. Open that up. And then our code for that icon is right here. So you'll notice the code is almost the same, except that the text inside the I tag says notifications. And I believe that's just how Google is looking for which icon it is, so then it can provide the right styling for it. I'm just going to copy that. For right now, we're just going to paste that right here next to the other one. Save that. Go back to our page. Go back to the home page, and we should see our bell icon. Everybody see it? Okay. So next to the profile switcher, so there's like a caret down icon. You can make those in CSS really easily, but they do have an icon font for it, but don't worry about that, you don't have to include that one. And then one that we will need, you'll see, it doesn't show up on desktop, but if we resize the browser, we have a little menu icon. So while we're there, we'll grab that icon as well. I think you can just search for the menu, it'll show up. Click it. No, I was only going to link the first one, and that's just going to go to our homepage. If you guys want, you can create different pages for all of these. So you could like customize what the images are or something like that and create a new HTML file, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Well, I'm just going to put that before my search. We're going to be adding some tagging elements around these, but that's just going to be the logical order that it will be. And go back to our page, save, refresh, see the menu icon. Anybody not have all three icons? Oh, okay. You think you'll understand how to do it? Yeah. Okay. All right. Been going for a little bit. Let's just take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll start to style the rest of this nav bar.
Did you say something about the border?
All right. What do you mean nothing's coming? So like, so like that in the bottom left.
Yeah, when you guys do pseudo selectors like hover, make sure that the colon hover is right up against the class. There's space between that and colon hover.
All right. All right, so we're gonna do our first pair programming activity. So when we first created these styles for header, we actually already set this as a flex container, and it's already going to pull the page. So what I want you guys to do is partner up and see if you guys can add in these links, as well as get your icons in the right places. So don't worry about the menu icon. We'll do that one. But see if you can do the search button, these two links, and the notification icon. Don't worry about profile management right now. See if you can get those in the right spot. Yes. So these are links right now. The only one that really is tied to anything is home. So don't worry about adding an href, but you will make those a tags. You can just not leave the href blank or do like hashtag pound. That's like this. It doesn't go anywhere. Okay. Yep. So just complete the header. You can comment out the menu icon right now because we're gonna show you how to just show that on mobile. And then don't worry about that profile image. We'll do that. One trick or tip that I'll give you guys, since we're going to be doing shared styles, we might need to override something from index. So what we're going to do is on the body for our homepage.html, we're just going to give it a class of homepage. So that way, if we need to specify we only want this change to happen in homepage, we can preface everything with that class. So if you're doing something that might mess up what's already in our index, you might need to use that class before your style. Just another hint. For those links, I'm going to be using UL and LI just to order them. You don't have to, but that's just the way I'm going to be doing it. If you want to match that up, we'll allow me to do. I don't know if Jeff showed you any like nav menu or navigation or anything like that. It's just standard usually for like nav menus to do UL, LI, and then inside that each LI do an A tag. I don't really know why, but it's kind of a list. But that's what that is. And there's two ways you kind of do this, by the way, to get those aligned the right way. One will probably come easily to you from what we've done over the past few days. The other one's a little bit more advanced, but I'll show you both.
If you guys want that new icon, get a new way. You guys want to do it?
just another hint if you're stuck. Think of these nav links on the left, not the header, but these nav links on the left, and then these icons and other links over here is two containers, two separate containers. I can keep this up here so you guys don't have to go back and forth on your own computers. Also, if you guys want a review of how to get your change.netlify, I can do that. I got tired of looking at the space video, so I swapped it out for another one that I could. Got the alien video. They're all in the videos folder. If you want me to change it again, I can run through how to push the changes. Yeah, just in case you get sick of that one.
So are we just only supposed to have stuff on our page right now and nothing else?
Correct. Yep. So you just have your logo and then everything you add. So the icons and everything.
Take a few more minutes. Can you do that? Yeah. I actually don't even think we need the nav tag. Like, if you guys, because we haven't styled it. So if you guys want to get rid of that nav tag, I think you can. Just delete the nav tag.
Well, so we're just using nav to target the other ones. We're not actually styling
If you guys want to delete nav from HTML, you can delete that, because that actually might mess up your flex on header, since there's a containing element that doesn't have flex on it. So get rid of nav inside your header. I'll show you guys. So let's go to homepage.html, and right below the header tag, we can get rid of nav. I actually don't think I'm styling that, which might cause you guys some issues. You can get rid of that, yeah. Because again, we're not styling anything specifically, but it can cause some issues if. Yeah, if you guys were having issues with Flexbox, that's actually probably why. So sorry about that. So the reason that might not have been working, we have header and Flexbox, but then if everything was inside nav and that's not a Flex container, that's its direct parent, it might not be responding. Because in header on homepage.html, we get that nav tag that was at the top here. So if we go to style.css, then go to where you're doing your styles for your logo. You can see we're looking for header logo within header nav. Since we deleted that, we can just remove nav from the selector. I'll go through this and make sure we're not using that anywhere else. I don't think we are. Nope.
Oh, you still want the logo. Okay, look at the logo. Okay.
But no, I want that.
Yeah, so you graphic.
So who's your style?
And
Yeah, they're very top.
okay. Oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's where I put,
Is anybody close? I think they have it already.
yeah. Right, but element style isn't.
Oh, no. It's not. It's from the. That's how you run it.
So once I decide I want to use it, what do I do?
Oh, so when you type use it, you can just thing is not with us. So graph it. You only use the
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just pretty like pretty not like a class with not one lesson.
Okay, so yeah, so you can actually have it out of some so I'll show you how to do it.
Oh. Now you know what to do. So.
Thank you. Now.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna start coding at 7:30, so then I'll show you guys the mobile map too. Yeah, so it's working how we want it. So go back to your page. Yep. So we actually have quotes. I'm going to show you how to get that black simulator on the right side. But you have the right side. So you could, but you'll see that there's 3 kind of containers since their logo isn't within networks. So if you do like transition or something like that, you'll see like the logo will be to the left. Your nav link will be like in the middle. So you have to do it. Now the next one is nav link.
Oh, okay.
I didn't even realize that. So on header, we have this by star. But for you, you don't. Okay. You can't change it, but you can add to the class list. Yeah, so nope. So to add another class, if it's already defined, you can just use the straight up within space. The other class name that you want to give.
I'm curious, how do you, like,
Add the other. So now I don't have that class. Is that one? So I'm on but it's not actually, so it's not tied like but if you want to do that. So either you can put that
I don't know how you want to do it. I thought I just put it in. Oh, really? You? I thought you wanted to nest it inside of it. That's why I left it.
why? Why not?
Oh, because I put that on your private piece of mind. Oh, okay. Because I thought you were telling me.
I mean, go ahead.
Alright, so we said
Okay.
Okay, so yeah.
It is tiny. Yeah. So I didn't. I was creative.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I didn't think anybody would think of that one.
All right.
We got 3 more seconds. 2, 1. All right. All right. See, some people have it. All right.
To be fair, if the menu items collapse into the menu
What do you mean? Like with your menu icon?
yeah.
Oh.
If I were resizing and it collapses into menu icon.
Okay. All right. So first things first, we need to get those links in there. So like I mentioned in the beginning, I'm just going to use a UL. Not sure why those are capital L. UL. And LI for each of those links. And then inside of LI, I'm going to do href, and I'm just going to give so this one can be homepage. It's going to go to itself though. But if we were to make those other links work, that's what we'd want to link it to. Close a tag, and I'm just going to call home. So did Jeff go over list at all? Okay. So you guys know UL is unordered list. There's an OL, which is ordered list. And then LI is just list item. I'm just going to copy this one. Okay, that goes the same place again. It's not really important where those go. And then check back with the links order. So we got TV shows, movies. Recently added. Is there one more? What was the last one? My list. You don't have to, it just makes it a lot easier to read. You mean like putting each of the LIs on their own line?
Yeah, like when if I don't have buttons or it's not all of them. I'm using it on my space, but the premium buttons
BR is to put in a line break, like the force one. That would be after the closing tag of the 2 items that you want to move through the line. So. Yeah, I really don't use BRs that often. Right. Like that element will go to the, yeah. Alright, so we have those links in there. Save. Refresh our page, refresh. So I got all those links in there. Correct. I'll style those links. So header. And then I want to target the UL. That's the containing element for all of our list items. I want that to be display flex. Again, the default flex direction is row, but I prefer to set it just so it's an indicator to me. Header UL. Sorry, can you see that? Sure. I can put it. Right. So there's no like UL in there to get confused.
So I didn't have to name
You don't have to. You could, but you don't have to. So you could. So we can do UL class. I'll call it nav links. Probably would be a good element to add a class name to, just because we're going to do some things with it. So yeah, we'll just use that. So the UL dot nav links. Now I want those to start at the beginning of their container, so I'm just going to do flex start. And then I want those to be vertically centered as well. So I'm going to just do align items center. So that's just to force them to go side by side. So you'll see by default lists are vertical. So really when I set UL as display flex, that's going to get them to go side by side. But I just like to say flex direction row, just so I can go back and see what the flex direction was. So the default is flex direction row. But when you're like nesting flex containers, it's always good to then just go back to your style sheet and see what you set the parent as. So if I just say, did I say that? You can see all those list items are now side by side. Yep, so I'll go back. I'll bump this to a new one too, so it's right here. Header UL dot nav Python links. Does everybody have those links in the right order? Okay.
Okay, so you did header UL dot nav links and then everything else that's
It's styles.
So are you going to be icon to 5 block and
that's a flex direction drawing?
Yep. There, I'll start with that. Okay. Alright, so now when we look at the page itself, you can see they're all squished together, so obviously we need to give space between those list items. So I'm going to target all the LIs that are within ul.navlinks.
So these different, why are you making them a separate one? Didn't it give me that one?
If you're using SAS. So are you saying like nesting?
Why can't you put it in the row above it?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So the way I'm going to add space between isn't using just like on space between. I'm just going to add padding to each of those A tags.
Okay.
So right now I'm targeting ul navlinks li. Now you might be tempted to add the padding to get each of those links spread apart on the li. But if you do it on the A tag itself, the user won't have to click the exact text of the link. There will be a little bit of space on the outside of each of them, so it's easier for them to click on it. So it's usually always a good idea to put that padding on the A tag itself. That way the user doesn't have to be as close to clicking on it. So we'll do LIA. Yep, so ul.navlinks is just the class I added to that UL I made. So I'm not sure what the font is, but we can get to that later. So I don't think they're pure white by default, but I'm just going to make them white right now. I'm going to bump up the font size to 14 pixels. Yeah, I'm not sure if these values are exactly what I have in the reference, but that's fine. I'm going to add space to the outside of each of them, so they're not running together. So I'm going to do padding 0, and I'll give them, they're pretty close together still, so it's probably, let's try 8 pixels. So again, no padding on the top and bottom, but I want 8 pixels on both sides of those elements. So save that and refresh. Now we can see there's a little bit of space in between each of those. Now you'll notice that each of these links are underlined. So typically in the CSS reset, it will take off a property called text direction. Usually the default is underlined for links, so that's why you see those. But it doesn't look like ours did, so what we can do to override that is using text direction none. Yeah. And if we save that, refresh, you can see those underlines go away. Uh, 0, 8 pixels, so no, not 0.8, just 0, space 8. So see the space between each of those links is fine, but the first link has a little bit more space between that and the logo. So we can just add some margin left on our container for all our list items. So I'll add that right here. Header UL nav links is the selector. And I'm just going to do margin left. We'll do 20 pixels. There we got that. Go back to the website, refresh. Now it's got a little bit more space between that and the logo. So it looks like there's more, so it's probably 40. If you guys want to change that, go back. Change margin left 20 to margin left 40. That'll be a little bit closer to the reference site.
Because like, two of my buttons didn't move over.
Okay. Okay, so we added padding to the film, but only for
So just do that.
Yeah, padding exactly.
all the time.
And you don't have to make it go anywhere, just add data tag. Anybody else been stuck with this yet? Great, did you have a question or no? Okay.
So so that's thinking about this so I'll put it to yourself. So you don't want to use that. So you can do like this. So it looks like you know so change that. Yeah, if you guys see different alignment, you might change your flex direction on header style. That should be the flex. Line 60, right above 60.
Hours of separated. One has more space here. Yeah.
Right, so we can actually just utilize a header for that. Because we actually already set those. We're using the default stuff we were setting in. We kind of thought ahead. Yeah, get rid of all that.
So what we got is the hour and
No, no. No, no.
I just make black.
So there's two ways to do this. So the way you might be being able to do it, let's check it.
Alright guys, so we styled those links, moved them over a little bit. Now it's a little bit closer to what we have. So you see that first one's bold. I just added a class active to that and then styled that one link specifically. We don't have to do that, so don't worry about that. It's pretty close. Font size probably a little bit bigger, but that's fine. We don't have to be pixel perfect. Now I'll show you guys how to get this container over to the right hand side of the page. Okay, I'm gonna comment out this menu icon right now. That don't need to show up yet for what I'm showing. And now we have these two icons here. And we want to move all that plus some more links to the right. I'm going to call this secondary links container. I'll close this container out after my notifications icon. Tab these in. I'm just going to make these their own line just so it's easier to read, see where they go. Alright. We have those two icons. You see right now though they're separated by two nav links. So inside of our secondary links container, in between our search and our notifications icons, we're just going to create another UL. And we're going to give it two list items with links in between. So li. It's kids and DVD. Are those two. And then we'll just give this a class of secondary links. After I do it this way, I'll show you the second. Okay, everybody got this? Alright, so we have this container over here. Before we do anything with styling this, we have to get that to the right hand side. So I'll show you guys how to do that right now. So we can do header. Now we have a container called secondary links container. The something that only purpose is really to contain elements, I always like to add that into the class name. Just when I'm looking at the back of my style sheet, I can say, okay, that's a container. I don't have to remember the specific name. I just always look for that container name in there. Secondary links container. Now all those items, just like our nav links, we want those to be in a row. So again, we can use flexbox for that. And we can set our flex direction to row. Now actually for these items, we always want them to be pushed to the right hand side. So instead of flex start, what we're actually going to use is flex end. But that's actually not going to move the container itself over to the right. That's only going to move its children to the right. So to move itself to the right, what we're going to use is a little trick called margin auto. So we're going to use margin, and then we're going to do 0, 0, 0, auto. Sorry. 0, 0, auto, 0. Top right. Oh, I had it right, sorry. I'll just show you the shorthand way to write it. So you don't have to remember. So what this is doing is just essentially using margin left auto, but it's always good to then add all the margins because eventually you probably will add like more margin to something. So instead of having like margin top a value, margin bottom a value, margin left a value, you can just do the shorthand property and then fill in zeros for the ones you don't need. So that way if you change your mind in the future, you can just come back and edit that value. You don't have to add another CSS rule. You save that, go back. See, that container itself is now all the way to the right. So this is the way I did it. So the way I saw a lot of people trying to do it, which is still fine, is putting all of these into one container and switch between them. That's also fine. I just like to keep that separate from the links container. Just from like an HTML semantic perspective, for when it reads it, I don't want the logo looking into the links. It's just purely the way I thought about it. But again, that's not necessarily wrong if you did it the other way.
So now what does that look like when you
So if I refresh, it's always on the right. Since these are flexed, they'll try to shrink to a point. They won't be able to shrink anymore. So we'll be able to cut off.
you can just go back to the CSS
So Caitlin, she did condition absolute on the container, which again, technically it worked. It could cause issues. It's fine. So let's get a little bit further. So you might have had something called that. All right, so we've got our container over here on the right, but now our links over here are still vertical because they're still in a normal list. So we'll target those by doing secondary header, secondary links, container, and then ul.secondary. I'm not gonna find it for me, so I gotta type it. Links. Now we're only targeting that UL that's inside of our second container. And we're going to give it basically the same properties as our other links container. So display flex, direction, row, specify content. I think it's still going to be flex start, but we'll see when we refresh. And then we want those to be aligned vertically, so we'll do align items. What's that? Yeah. They get longer. They get longer. Once you see the final style sheet, you'll see some of those that are pretty lengthy. Which again is really the only thing I don't like about writing all my things in one line. So normally I don't have word wrap on, so I'll have to do some horizontal scrolling in some cases. But
Can you just highlight everything that you just highlighted?
yep.
One of the things that happens with me is every time I turn away and I come back and look for that, I have to.
Yep.
Okay.
So these two.
Just a second. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Just highlight. Thank you. So it's display flex. Display flex and then flex direction row.
Yep. On the UL secondary links.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's justified content.
Flex start. No line header.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So hold on. So after flex direction row.
Justify content.
So now my keys are
They're still stacked?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't think. Also, the other thing there is last second. So it should be opening.
So now we got them stacked that we want. Okay. So now we're going to style those links again, just like we did the other ones. So instead of typing this out, just so you guys don't have to type it out, again, it's better to be more specific than less specific, just so some of these styles don't apply to things you want to style in the future. But just so you guys don't have to type that out, we can just still do header, UL secondary links. We don't necessarily have to specify the containing element. The good thing about Sass and Less is then you don't have to retype those. They get added to all your styles as you keep nesting your styles. That's another benefit of using those. Secondary links. LI. That's how we're going to target link items. And we're just going to give it the same style as above. Font size. X. Padding. 0. APX. I'll bump that to inline so it's 4 mix. And text decoration none. Let's say that. Save that. Refresh. We can see we got those links in there. We look at the reference site. We can see those links are actually capitalized. If you wrote it out that way, that's fine. But if you didn't, we can use that property we talked about earlier for our other button called text transform. And the value is uppercase. And it will capitalize all the text within that element. Capital. You can see there's a little bit more space between those icons and between the links. So I'll show you guys too. I showed a few of you guys, but for the icons themselves, you have to keep that material icons class there because Google's using that to style them and to display the right icon. But you can also add classes to those if you want to target them specifically. So I'm just going to do search icon. And then for the notifications, I'll do notifications icon. You can shorten those if you want, as long as you know what they mean. Save that, and I'll go to my style sheet. I'm just going to say header, secondary links container. And then I'm going to target that first icon, so I'm going to target the search one. I'm going to do i.search-icon. We want to, since that's the first one, we want to give it a little bit more space on the right hand side. So we can use margin right to 10 pixels. Save that. You can kind of see that bumps over a little bit. So if somebody's trying to click on that search icon, they are less likely to click on that kids icon. So now we need to do the same thing on the notifications. We'll do almost the same selector, so we can even just copy that. You don't have to retype it. The only difference is instead of search icon, we're going to do notifications icon. And we're going to do the opposite of what we did on the search icon. We're going to push it a little bit more over to the left. They got that. Save it. Now you can see that adds more space to the left of that icon too. Now, like I said before, icon fonts are treated just like a normal font, just like these over here, Pure Sans. So we can actually style icon fonts just like we do normal fonts. So for example, if I wanted to change the color of search icon, all I use is the color property. So I'll do it like red. Go back, save that. Now that search icon's red. So always keep that in mind. If you're using Google icons, you just style them like you would any other font. Whereas if it's an image, then you gotta do some different things. We don't want that more. Alright, so we're pretty close. For the sake of time, I'm not going to show this little indicator in the profile image. But I will mention quickly the little number indicator is what's called a pseudo element. So I used that before on that icon. And then you can basically style, it's called, again, a pseudo element. It's tough to explain, really, without showing you what it is. But that's what that was, how that was done. Yes. Right. Yep. Alright, so I will show you guys. Alright, I'll let you guys choose. Would you rather see how we do this? Or would you rather see how to add the video? I thought so. Both? If we stay after class, I'll show both. How about that? What do you mean?
So are you going to show us how to do both instead of waiting for us to try to find it?
Oh, yeah, I can show you both. The video, we might not have time for both. But if you do want to stay after, I'll do both. Alright, so let's do the video. Because actually, for the most part, until you hit small tablet, it's decent. So, again, you can always look at the reference code after I give you that GitHub link later if you want to see how that admin is done. But let's do the video. So this will be one of the first responsive tricks, that I'll show you. And that is because this video is actually in a containing element with no actual height set. And you'll see why in a second. So the first thing we're actually going to do is just create a div. And that's going to be the whole width of the page. And then it's not going to have height. So just so you guys can kind of visualize what we're doing here. So if we go to homepage, then after header, we're just going to do, we'll actually call it a section, just because it is a section of the website. So section, and we'll give it a class of featured section. So that might be a class name. Netflix might give their top section that they're featuring for the latest movie or TV show. So we have that section in there. And while we're in here, we can go ahead and add the video tag. So this is how you add an HTML5 video into your website. So we give it the video tag, and then we have to provide a source. So the source is our pathing to that video. So if we go up, oh no, we're in the root. So we're in the root directory, the same directory as all our folders, so we don't have to go up any. So we can just type videos, /, and then it should say in your VS Code, it should give you a preview of all the video names that we have. So you guys can pick whichever one you want, but I'm just going to do Army since I haven't used that one yet. So now I have the source for my video. Oh, I'm sorry. This is actually going on the new line. One second. I think I have it backwards. Yep. Sorry. So we'll close out that video tag. And then we're just going to do a source tag. So you don't define the source on the video tag itself. You do it on a tag within it. So then you can just copy your attribute that you did on there and put that on the source. And then source is a self-closing tag. So it's only 12 characters like that. Almost like an image. So now we have to add what are called attributes to this video. So the one that we have first is width. So these are added as attributes like this. Width equals 100% in quotes. That's how you add those attributes. And there's some that are just words by themselves, just so you guys can see what we're going to do. So first we're going to define it a width. So it's going to be 100%. Then we're going to provide it a height. And then we're also going to give it 100%. We're actually going to override that in our styles. But now one attribute that you want to add on this video tag is autoplay. So as soon as you visit the site, it starts playing. The user doesn't have to hit play at all. So we'll add that tag. It should autocomplete for you because VS Code recognizes it's a valid attribute. Now in most browsers nowadays, if you put this autoplay tag on a video, it will mute it. I'm sorry, it's a weird other way. So if you want the video to autoplay, you have to include the mute attribute. If you don't include the mute attribute, it will pause the video because it doesn't want the user to be like startled as soon as they open up the website. So they thought that was like a good default feature because most people would try to turn that off anyway. So to be able to autoplay the video, you have to provide muted. And the last attribute we're going to add is called loop. So we want that video to keep playing even after it ends. It will just start from the beginning. Now if we save this, we should see something on the page. You should see that. If you don't, let me know.
It's not done yet, though.
Anybody else have some video?
If you guys want to check out the other ones too, if you just, again, get rid of the video name, you can go through the other ones or just check the folder. I included like 5 of them. So you can pick which one you want to use. So. The menu to like see what videos are there. So there's not like a specific way. So if you just are typing videos and then as soon as you hit slash, it shows you the list. And then you can just go arrow down, and hit enter. For example, if I wanted like waves, I just hit enter, autofills it. got waves. Also, I know some of you, I showed this stock video site where I got these videos after class one day, but I'll show you guys two that haven't seen it. So the site is called Pixabay. So it's a site with free stock videos that you can use for any types of projects. And they're really, really high quality. But I got all those videos from this one site. I can also pin this out in the student Slack.
Is that
Pixabay, yep. And then slash videos, because they have images too, I believe, if you're looking for stock images. But I have the free version. I haven't paid for any of these. Yeah. Students. So for example, if I want space, see they have all these different types of videos on space. And they give you a little preview of how long they are. So you can click on these. Oh, that one might have been paid. Oh yeah, there's a top one called Sponsored by Shutterstock. So they try to get you to pay for those top ones. So if you click on the ones at the bottom below that, it brings you to this. If you hit free download, you can pick the resolution that you want it. I picked all my 720p just because it's a good mix of quality and file size. If you do like the full 1080p, or some of these are even like in 4K, it's going to take a while to load, and then all your user bandwidth will be like used up every time they visit your site. So it's good to keep those file sizes small when you do this type of stuff. If I just hit like 720p, hit download, and then you can save it wherever you want and add it to your projects. It's a really good resource. Like I said, they're actually really high quality videos, them being free. So. Alright, so if we go back to our site, you can see it's kind of how we want. And if we refresh, it does maintain its aspect ratio, even on smaller screens, so it's always 16:9. Now the default for all video players aren't always this, so if you were to use like a YouTube iframe, it might not always be 16:9. So I'll show you guys a trick. You won't really want to see a difference because it's doing it by default. But if you want anything else to be 16:9, hint, hint, these images, you would do it this way. Those by default will not be the right ratio. So let's go to our style sheet. And we're going to target that featured section. I'll just scroll to the bottom so we get these styles out of the way. We'll do dot featured section. And this is going to be width 100%. Going to have a height of 0. We're going to add a padding bottom to section. It's going to be 56.25%. I'll explain what that means in a little bit. Two other properties we need, so we're going to need overflow hidden. And we're also going to need position relative. So the reason we need padding bottom 56.25% is because that is the value of 9 divided by 16, which is our aspect ratio that we want. So that's what 9 divided by 16 times 100 is what that is. So it's really 5.625 is that number. But so padding bottom, when you use a percentage, is always in relation to the width of your element. when a height is 0. So that's why we have to specify the height is 0. So you can think of this as almost 50% of that's how tall that's going to be. Which if you think about 16 by 9 video, that's almost how it comes out to be. Yeah. Now if I were to do padding bottom 100%, it would always be as tall as its width. So in this case, it would be a square. Or it's always a square if it's equal to what you set the width as. If you wanted something to be twice as tall, you would do padding bottom 200%. It would be so 60 by 9 is the aspect ratio of the video. So you get that number by dividing 9 by 16 and then timesing it by 100. Right? I think. Don't ask me about the math, but yes, that's yeah. Yes, that's where that comes from. Yeah, you do 10 divided by 18 times 100, I think. It's either 10 or 100. There's a good article that explains this on CSS tricks. So if we do padding bottom responsive technique, and just do CSS tricks. Even if you didn't do that, it probably would be the first one that comes up because everybody goes there for this type of stuff. And they've got a good write-up on what that math is doing. I'll pin that. Padding bottom 56.25%. I'll ping that article in the Slack channel just so you guys can reference it later if you want to learn more. So we have our big container here that has that height on it. But now we would need our video to match whatever that is. So what we're going to do is we're going to do .featured section space video. And we want it to be 100% of the width of that container as well as 100% of the height. You'll see we set position relative on our featured section. We're going to make sure that video always starts on the top left of that. So we're actually going to use position absolute, top 0, left 0. Give you guys a second to catch up. So basically when you think about it, our container is always going to be the aspect ratio we need. So we just want our video to match what our container is doing. Yes. Yeah, anything you guys want to learn, do the question and then CSS tricks after it, and you'll find a good resource most of the time. Right. So we save and refresh. We're not going to see anything different with the video, but you'll notice it's actually covering our header. So that's because position absolute elements will always take over non-position absolute elements in terms of Z index. It's another property you can use when using position absolute, position relative, and position fixed. And that is a way to control your layers. So I know in the Syracuse.com website, when you were position absoluting that text over your image, you might have needed to change that Z index value to make sure it always stays on top. You might not have, but That might have. I'm not sure if you added that to your styles. But.
What happens when you comment that off? Because you said it took over a header. I didn't quite see what you were doing.
Oh yeah, so sure. So let's do style. So I think it was showing below our header before. I comment that out. So since I set this, the section is a 0 height. There's nothing in it. That's why it's not showing that. So if I comment this out too, see how our header is showing over the video?
Oh, okay. So the header is actually inside of it, so it pulls
So what we need to do is make our z-index lower than the header. So we'll uncomment this out, and then yes, exactly. Yep. Z-index is on the video itself. Yes. Yep. So z-index. If I do -1, it will be below whatever elements it needs to be. You can also do, so you could do 10, as long as your element that you want to go beneath has a higher z-index, it will go underneath it. So if you need to create like multiple layers, then you just have to manage those z-index values to get them in the right place. So always the lower number will go beneath, higher number goes above. And I don't think there's a limit to like the number you can put here. What's it? I think it's 1, but I'm not positive. Right. Yep. -1. If I save and refresh, it still should be like that, even though we have that height back there and our video's position absolute. Now this will always be 16:9 no matter what screen you're on. Again, I was doing that by default, but say this was an image or like YouTube iframe, it would be doing the same thing.
Your header is still inside of the video. I thought the video was supposed to fall below the Netflix when the links and stuff at the top.
Oh, by below I meant like depth-wise. Okay. So like before it was actually covering the navigation. Yeah, so I just want it to be below it so you can still see the navigation. I didn't mean like physically like yes. So in the reference site there's it shows it right over them like that. Yeah. That's how you guys do videos. So one other thing while we're here I can show you. So notice on the reference site it's kind of tough to tell with this video, but it looks like our main body section is kind of like gradually has a gradient to go into the video. If I kind of see it, but not really on this well. I'll change this one too. You'll be able to see it on the label, and so I'll commit this correction now. You kind of see a little bit more. So the section looks like it's kind of like fading into the top of that video. So what we'll do is on our section, what we're going to do is we're actually going to add another pseudo element. And this will allow me to end with showing you guys how to do gradients. You'll need it for the navigation as well. Featured section. We're going to just do an after. There's two pseudo elements. You can do colon before or colon after. I don't believe they actually mean anything. Like if you do one before, it's going to show up before the element if you don't specify. You know, Cash? If you do before and you don't specify where you want it to go, will it show up before? I don't know if I've ever tried that, to be honest with you, but I don't think they actually mean anything direction-wise. We're going to override that anyway, so even if they did, it wouldn't matter which one you used. And the first property we're going to do is content. It's just going to be empty single quotes. So this is a trick to make it look like there's something inside of the element, even though there isn't. So that way we can set like a width and height on it, and it will still display on the page, even though there's nothing inside of it. It's almost like, it's not, but it's almost like setting like display block, but for a pseudo element funnel. Now we're going to do width 100%, because we want this element to be the width of the page as well as the video. And we're just going to give it a height, and we'll do like 125 pixels. Now we have that. We need to tell it that we want it to be at the very bottom of our section. So we're going to do position absolute. We've already set our parent container system out, so we know in relation to setting this absolute to. Position absolute, bottom 0, left 0. That'll put that in the bottom left of the container. Now we want to make sure this gradient appears over the video, so we're just going to do z-index 10. And I'll just make this blue for now, just so you can see where that element actually is. Background blue. Save that. I'll come back to the styles, don't worry. And refresh. You see we have a 125 pixel box at the bottom of our video. Now we don't actually want that to be blue. We just want that to be a gradient that goes to transparent. Does everybody have these styles? I'll let you guys finish typing these before I do the gradient. There we go. Alright, so the way you guys can do a linear gradient as a background is to specify you want the background to be a linear gradient. So this is within background, yep. Linear hyphen gradient, and then it. Nope, we'll do that within the gradient itself. So inside of these parentheses, first we have to specify the direction for the gradient to go. I believe this is 2 space top. So just the words 2 top. Then we're going to do comma. Since we're doing 2 top, our first color value should be the one that's on the bottom. So we're going to do the same color as our body background. So 1 4 1 4 1 4. So this will make it look like it's starting from the body background, so it's the same color. Then we'll do another comma, and we want to transition it from the body background to transparent so you can see the video. So we can actually provide transparent as our second color value. And after those parentheses, just make sure to put your semicolon. That's the end of the background style. I might have this 2 top and 2 bottom flipped, but we'll see if I'm right. Now it looks like it's fading in from our body background into the video. Gives it a kind of cool effect.
So what we just put in for the version, that's still the section after?
Yes. Yep. I'll go back to the styles.
the video.
Right. So when you see this, we see our feature section. So let's hit 0.
Yeah.
We give our children like a video height. We get that height 100%.
Right.
So a little trick for you guys. So what we're gonna do.
It doesn't matter whether or not you put it up or you convert the kind of outcome.
No, like the ordering of the styles. So you'll see we have these items like the buttons and the text in the vertical center, but to the left. So really, how I did that is I have a container around it, and just like the video, I'm gonna get width 100% of the container, and then height 100%. And then once that's set, and it's position absolute top 0 left 0, just like the video is, we can set that as a flex container. And basically, then we can do our normal flex properties that we use, kind of like to vertically center our profiles, just like this. It can be flex direction column, specify content center, and then align items flex start. So basically, you're creating a container that is just the same size as the video. And then once we have this container, we can just make that a normal flex container. And then do our positioning button. I can show you guys the code for that if you want. Just so you guys get a head start for your homework. So if I open up the home page, so you'll see this is my featured selection. I just made this an ID in this one. And then I have a container called featured selection content, which contains my buttons and my text. And then if I go to the styles for that, featured selection content, you can see it's just a normal flex container, like we were using to center the profile page. If we go to the end, it's got the same size as the video, so we can make sure that what we're centering is always centering it within the video's width and height. So it's width 100%, height 100%, position absolute, top 0, left 0, and I gave it as the index value.
And you call that feature section?
Content. You'll notice the z-index value, so this is 100. So you guys are going to want to make sure that your z-index value is higher than any z-index value set on that video. Make sure that your content always plays above the video. I know this stuff is all new, and you might not understand it now, but if you can get like a grasp on what this is doing, just the ideas behind it, you don't even have to memorize it. Just use this file if you ever need to do something like this as a reference. You'll be in good shape. Yeah. That's a great way to explain it, yes. Correct. And you'll see that in the JS folder, main.js. Alright, so let's go back. Like I said, I just have a slide. Like I said in the beginning, the homework for Sunday at midnight is just to try to complete as much as you can. I'm not looking for it to be pixel perfect or even 100% complete. Just do the best you can using that reference site. And then also I included on this slide the link to download my code for the finished site. So you can compare and contrast against your own and see how I did it and troubleshoot. Again, I will be available on Saturday from 2 to 4 to answer questions. Just hit me up on Slack. You can put it right on the CIC Students channel, and I'll be available to answer any of your questions. And then here's my contact info, just in case you guys want to get in touch with me at any point further in the course. If you guys have questions on your capstone projects from a UI perspective, I'm happy to help. Don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks, guys. Yeah, and if you guys still have questions or want help, just stay after and I can help you guys.
either, I agree with that. Every just keeps up with you. Oh, they're not gonna sit there and listen, but that's data that they collected.
No.
Yeah, so
They have.
you said that Unix load and default was checked.
I don't have one.
So since they have the value, that video. So if we set a lower value, like -1, that will go under. I know it's a lot.
I'll find that absolute positioning article for you guys too and put it in the Slack channel.